But now because I put in the right key.
Okay.
Victory is mine. Okay, it works. Technology
Carpe
is
the
hard.
diem.
Yeah.
Carpe the diem. We got this.
Okay. I can still record this, right? Record on this computer. Okay, cool.
Got it.
And hopefully we will get questions and people will ask things. If not, that's okay. I know a lot of people have been interacting with stuff on the account recently, so they have no reason not to ask stuff, because we are just here to answer questions and talk about everything that has been going on within the past, I guess, since Monday at 12.
It's 2014.
It's 2014. Actually, it's fitting that we're talking about this today because it's a year ago was the protests by the players.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But I'm actually going to do a real intro because I kind of forgot about that. But yeah, we're gonna start this show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a live edition of Women's Sports Matter. My name is Gianna Del Castro. I am your host, and joining me here tonight is one half of the BAM fam, Thomas Costello. We are going to be talking about NWSL stuff, unfortunately. Thomas, I feel like every time we chat, it's always about something bad happening in the National Women's Soccer League.
Yeah, it's been a tough couple of days, just getting a lot more details than we've heard in the last year. You mentioned it's been a year since the initial Athletic article that kind of started it didn't start. It was kind of the exclamation point on, all right, we're not going to play. We're going to take back the league that really feels like hasn't been theirs since it started. So it's been a little bit of a tumultuous time. And I know a lot of it's hard for folks to just reading the details of the Yates report that we'll talk about. And it's always important to take care of yourself when you're looking through that stuff. So I'm not planning on getting any graphic details about any of this stuff. It's good to come together and talk to each other outside of 280 characters and get our thoughts and just kind of discuss it with people who you respect their opinions and getting to hear what they have to think about everything that's going on right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about a little bit what tonight's live stream is going to look like. But first, I would like to put out there for everyone that is watching on Twitter and YouTube, if you want to type in the chat if you're on YouTube, or if you are watching on Twitter, if you want to type in the replies, if you have questions, comments, opinions, you want to vent, you can put it out there. We're going to talk about as much as we can, but not in graphic detail, like Thomas had said. Here's a little rundown of what's going on tonight, and I'm stealing this from you, Thomas. Of course, the little the rundown. I usually don't have plans for my episodes, but tonight's a little different. Our first thing we're going to be chatting about is, our general thoughts of everything that has happened since the beginning of the week. Then we're going to move into Truth Be Told, and then we're going to move into I don't even know how many pages of the Yates investigation, which is the main topic of the evening. Also, the NWSL team's statements, as well as things players and former players, coaches have said, anyone involved in the media, things like that. And then if you have questions, we'll also mix those in there. But Thomas, if you want to start with your overall thoughts of just everything that has gone down this week.
Yeah, it's the Yates report went into, like I said, detail about stuff that we've already kind of heard. It talked about Portland. It talked about all the reporting that Meg Linehan and the folks at The Athletic did. It talks about stuff that was going on with Chicago and Molly from the Washington Post, who had that article go out the day after the NWSL title game, just, hours after Rory Dames was allowed to resign. And a lot of the stuff for Chicago and Portland was, it's always tough to read, but a lot of that was, okay, now we're finding out what was right and what was wrong. What was a lie from Merritt Paulson, from Arnhem Whistler? What was the truth? And getting into the granular detail there was, I think it was important. It was difficult. I think the toughest part, just for me personally, was the Racing Louisville part of it. I'm not a Racing Louisville fan. I'm not a supporter of them. I covered the NWSL last year. I've been covering soccer for over 3 years. And last year I was doing stuff with the team. I was writing articles that went onto the team website, interviewing players, everything with Christy Holly when he was hired last year. Depending on the Twitter that you choose to follow and the timeline that you have, there was always murmurs about, okay, well, Christy Holly's he's done bad stuff before. Why is this person coaching? Why is this going on? And it kind of came to light whenever he was quietly let go. That was difficult, but hearing the detail there, reading the detail in the Yates report, going in, and I read a lot of the companion pieces for it. I don't have a lot of time to go through the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of the Yates report, but to see the graphic detail of what Christy Holly did, especially to Aaron Simon, who was the person who came forward and spoke about it. Like, I had interviewed Aaron last year for Beyond Women's Sports, and I did an article about just her coming back from England, playing overseas, coming back here, and just knowing at the time that could have been happening. It's disgusting. It's just awful. And just over even the last year, not a relationship, like on social media, I'll congratulate her when she moved back to England. Congratulations, and all this stuff that's going on, and having at least a small enough relationship to say hi or get a response from somebody. Like, after the interview, it was really awesome being able to talk to her, and just seeing this was like, I almost felt guilt. I was not part of any of this stuff. I didn't do anything like that. I was somebody who loves the league and wants to cover it and wants to help amplify it as much as I could. And seeing that somebody that I had interacted with was just like, I felt awful for her. And I felt just like, on one side, horrible, but on the other side, the strength to come forward and be able to share those details and be able to give that to the Yates investigation, that it's unbelievable. And now seeing the cover up that went into Louisville, especially, and seeing that Portland and Chicago, we hear about these things happening years and years ago. We hear about the main items happening years and years ago, the main things that people have been discussing. And not to say there hasn't been abuse since then, but in 2021, this is happening last year. This is as recent as last year. These awful things that we think, oh my gosh, they've been under wraps for years, are happening under supporters' noses as they're, going into the bubble, and as they're, protesting with the rest of America after the George Floyd murders, after they're going after all these social justice things. Behind the scenes, there's still people abusing players. And that was what kind of tipped me over the edge personally, because there's so much about, like, Arnhem, and on the Bryant and Me account, we have a podcast and we joke around a lot, but everything about that has been serious. We haven't been wanting to amplify the team itself because we don't want to give money. We don't want to support Arnhem. But that over months, we're watching the matches and we're tweeting the matches, and we're not interacting with the team. We're not doing interviews of players. We're not, like, amplifying their message at all. But seeing that on the doorstep of the playoffs. It's like I don't want to watch. I don't want to watch the league anymore. And it's painful because I want to support the players and I want to be able to watch the matches and cheer for them and talk about them. But knowing who it goes to, it just kind of reaffirmed a lot of things, at least in the Chicago world, in the Portland world, where unless there's massive changes, unless there's overhauls to the extent that they did to the Utah Royals and Utah Real Salt Lake, ownership, if that doesn't happen, it's hard to follow the league, and it's hard to imagine the league staying on its upward trajectory it's been on for the last year or two.
Yeah,
So how about you?
I've had a wacky past few days. I remember when the investigation had come out, and people are already posting screenshots of it, and it's just like it's a lot. I was not prepared to read what I was reading about. Even the table of contents was like, this is a lot already.
And it's only 3 teams. It's only focusing on 3 teams.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But I don't know, as someone that has been covering the NWSL for like 2 or 3 years now, I don't know. I think about the players that I have interviewed and the people that I interact with online, and it's like, well, I hope they're okay. That's the bottom line, is I hope they're doing well. Even reading the stuff about Chicago, I've interviewed multiple Chicago players. Not once have I asked them about any of this stuff, because I don't think that is my job to do that. It's not my place to do that, especially right now as everything is ongoing. I don't even know if, like, I just worry about, like, are they comfortable enough to talk about that? Which they probably aren't. But I think an interesting thing that I'll point out of Instagram stories from Red Stars players in particular, I don't know if you've noticed those at all. Some of the players have been posting a post or a quote from Becky Sauerbrunn and Megan Rapinoe. I'm not going to say which players, but just basically saying, Arnhem and Merritt aren't fit to be team owners. Get all the bad people out of there. So they're saying stuff without typing it out. We're not going to hear from the players, and probably until the NWSLPA investigation is done, which we don't even know when that's going to be finished up. It could be at the end of the year, it could be next year. We don't know. But just like going back to what you had said about like all that stuff happening with Aaron Simon, like reporting your abuser is hard. It's not an easy task. It takes a lot of courage to do that. And so, I commend every single person that, reported these people. And, just reading all those things, it's tough. So shout out to them, honestly, for, saving other people from these abusers. That's all I gotta say, generally speaking.
Yeah. And then to the point about like Instagram stories, over the last few months, even before this Yates report went live, even seeing players liking stuff on Twitter.
Yeah.
I know that like we've posted stuff about Arnhem being out, and we've seen responses. We've seen like not actual replies, but we've seen support from people on the field. And it's when you have the players like Aaron and like Mana and like Sinead and everybody who's come forward, and like Kaya and everybody who's shared their experiences, it's gotten us to this point. Kristen Press also, and I'm sure there's a whole list of names that we probably don't even know. All of that snowballs to give more people the motivation to speak up and say what's wrong. And I think you're seeing players now on a public level sharing, like you said, but Becky Sauerbrunn and Megan Rapinoe's words about you need to get these owners out of the league completely. And hopefully that's a sign that that's something that's realistically going to happen, because we're going to talk about the statements later, but you're starting to see a little bit of a domino effect, a little bit about some folks losing their positions, but the people in the total ownership are still safe. They're still benefiting from everything. They're still getting financial reward for whatever their teams happen to do in the playoffs, and whatever happens to, if they have TV deals and stuff like that, they're still benefiting from. So as long as they're in those spots, it's tough, but seeing those players speak out now is hopefully, like I said, a sign of good things to come in that regard.
Yes. So now we're going to move on to Truth Be Told, which for people that are listening and don't know what that is, I'll do a brief explanation. Truth Be Told is an E60 documentary produced by ESPN talking about everything that has gone on in the past year with the NWSL and all the abuse stuff. The main focal point of the E60 documentary is Mana Shim's story, and we'll get into that later. It also talks a little bit about the history of women's professional soccer in the United States. And so I'm going to go through that really quickly because I did take some notes and I was like, why is this being talked about? It matters. So the first thing we start off with is the 99ers. The 99ers are the Women's World Cup team, the U.S. Women's National Team. They won the World Cup, and when they showed that, I was like, oh, they're showing all these people from way back when, which, apologies to you, Thomas.
That's ageist. That's okay. No, it's fine.
Talking about just how great that team was and how they inspired the next generation. That's something that Mana Shim had mentioned. And then breakthrough for women's sports, a quote from Billie Jean King. And then it dives into the foundation of the WUSA, which featured some of the stars from the U.S. Men's National Team. And then that folded 3 years later. And then the same thing happened with the WPS. And then we get to the NWSL, which was created by U.S. Soccer. And in this documentary, it was justified that these players were making $6,000. Well, that was the minimum salary. And then with that being mentioned in that documentary was the poverty line at the time was $11,500. So they were making way below the poverty line, and it simply wasn't enough. So then it talks a little bit more about the founding teams of the league and some of the coaches and all that. But I'm just going to talk about some of the things that I noticed in the documentary, and then Thomas, you can respond, and then talk about some of the stuff that you noticed. I think the biggest thing for me was appearances by some players. Some of them didn't make sense. Some of them just made a fool out of themselves. And by some of them, I mean 2 of them. And one thing that I didn't write down, but I would like to say is really interesting, is the inclusion of the documentary clips from when North Carolina had a camera crew around, showing all the clips of Paul Riley, and like how he was acting, how he was coaching, all that. Because I was confused of why he was in it when I knew that he wasn't going to be a part of the documentary. I was like, oh, I didn't know they had a camera crew follow the Courage around for a season. So that was interesting. In terms of key quotes, I have 2 written down. First one is Aubrey Kingsbury, who is a goalie for the Washington Spirit, talking about how we knew the league was fragile, which, yes, I agree 100%. And it's still currently fragile. Maybe even a better term could be used for that. And then Richie Burke, former Washington Spirit coach, using cancel culture when talking about why he was fired Okay, we got it. Okay. And some other things I noticed. Andy Sullivan, I wish I was a body language expert just so I could figure out what was going on with her. I'm not saying anything bad about Andy Sullivan, by the way. I'm an Andy Sullivan fan. Okay. One of my favorite NWSL players by far. I don't understand what her words exactly brought to the discussion and
She
this
didn't want to be
documentary.
there. She didn't want to be
there. I don't understand
No.
why she agreed to be a part of it. It didn't make sense. I did like the inclusion of Kingsbury because I thought it brought something to the table. Same thing with Tori Huster, but Andy Sullivan, I don't understand. And Monishim actually telling her story instead of just reading the words from the Athletic article was really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and fuck Lisa Baird. And fuck Richie Burke. Sorry for the cussing, but it's necessary. Lisa Baird, she would do really well on an episode of like Law and Order or something. I feel like she could play a character on there really well, just based off of her body language and how she was acting. No, I didn't recall seeing an email about that. Shows the receipts. Yeah. But
she
all
did
in
not
all,
want to be there. She
no.
did not want to be there. No.
But all in all, not much new information. And yeah, your turn.
Yeah. Whenever they advertise this, ESPN 30 for 30 document, not 30 for 30, E60, excuse me, E60 investigation. When I first saw the advertisement for it, and I saw that they interviewed Richie Burke, and I saw that Lisa Baird was on it, and no offense, just my own knowledge of it. I like whenever I saw like Merritt Mathias there, and whenever I saw other players there, I was like, what? Like, I see Monishim there, and Alex Morgan was there, and they seemed to be key players in that Athletic article and stuff. But how did it fit together? And I honestly, I didn't want to hear what Richie Burke had to say. I didn't want to hear what Lisa Baird had to say. And then when they delayed it, if you don't remember, for folks who are listening or watch this later on, they delayed the release of this. Was supposed to come out a month and a half ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. But I think with the Yates report pending, they put a pause on it, which I then thought, okay, are you going to add more substance to it from that report? If you didn't watch the whole thing, anything about the Yates report is the final 2 minutes of the episode, and they're bullet points pretty much of what happened. I thought that the investigation was a lot for, I would say, folks who don't know anything about the NWSL. I think their audience is for folks who are also learning about what the NWSL is. To that extent, though, when you said they went through the history, I thought there were really good parts to it. I think the beginning, hearing how much they were paid, folks knew that players weren't getting paid a lot, especially when the league started, just until the January 1st of 2022, when they got the collective bargaining agreement agreed to tentatively. Even then, that moved them up to 30-some thousand as the minimum pay.
Like 35
now. But we always knew the pay was little, but to see the perspective of, okay, these other leagues had folded and this league is going to happen and they're not getting paid a lot. You could kind of see where they were setting up I'm going to do whatever I can to keep my job, and I'm going to do whatever I can to play professional soccer. And so hearing Monishim talk about it, hearing Merritt Mathias and being part of it, and just hearing her involvement and her thoughts and being a teammate, I thought it was amazing hearing her perspective on it. I thought it was great seeing her on there. I know we talked about it before here, but like Simone Charlie, I don't know why she was on there, Andy Sullivan, some other players who maybe had a line or two, but I can see what they were trying to do, bring in maybe players from Portland, bring in players from Washington, bring in players from North Carolina. Outside of Mathias, I think 2 other North Carolina players. It was mostly
Meredith
Washington.
Speck.
Oh, Meredith Speck, thank you. It was mostly Washington players. It was mostly them, because I think that was the only firing that was focused in the video that didn't have an ongoing investigation. So there's no Chicago athletes. Kristen Press declined to be interviewed. Rory Dames declined to be interviewed. I think Arnhem I don't know if they mentioned him by name, but I'm assuming he declined to be interviewed.
Mhm.
Anybody who was pending investigation, it cut a lot of that out. So if you didn't read the Athletic article, let's say you're behind the paywall and you didn't want to read it and you're just, I'm going to learn from the tweets. It was really great to get that Athletic article and hearing from Mana herself. And then seeing the fallout with like the Alex Morgan tweets, especially hearing that it wasn't simply just her, which is still an amazing thing. Like she has such a platform, and it was obviously the tipping point that got Lisa Baird out of there. But hearing that it was a unified front, and it was the lawyers and Mana and Sinead and her, and they're working together. Like, what's the best way to get this out there? I appreciated seeing that. I appreciate seeing some of that stuff. But the Richie Burke interview saying cancel culture and acting like I didn't do anything wrong. Well, the fact that they hired a youth coach to coach an NWSL side shows everything about Steve Baldwin. The stories that they had about Richie Burke were just ridiculous. I don't know why. Interviewing him, he's like, "Oh, I yelled at players." Like, "Oh, is that what's wrong with that?" He just there's no empathy from him. Lisa Baird, even then, they asked Lisa Baird, "Did you know anything about this, Mana Shim, all the details of it," where Alex Morgan calls her out on blast. And you mentioned this a little bit earlier. She trips over her words too. Like she gets stuck because she's like, "Oh, well, that happened 5 years before I got here." But she doesn't mention that she was emailed about it. She doesn't mention that Mana reached out and said, "Hey, can we talk? I want to share information about this," because he's still coaching. He's still in the league. The people that were part of this from front offices are still in all their positions of power. Lisa Bear pretty much turned it into, "Oh well, I took accountability in the response because commissioner has to do that," but she didn't admit any personal wrongdoing. It just it was a bummer. A lot of it was a bummer to me seeing some of this stuff. And I'm in pitch black now. I probably could have. I'm glad I watched it. It's not gonna be something I'll watch again. I think that the reporting done by Molly, reporting done by the Athletic, I think that's going to stand kind of the test of time better than this documentary will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to sit here in the dark.
You're not going to fix your lighting situation?
No.
You're just going to, okay.
It might be creepy, but if I turn on the ring light, it's going to go mad. Like I'm going to be like super white, which is, I'm already super white.
Yeah, I had to lower the setting on my ring light. I have some great comments on YouTube from Felix.
Oh gosh. All right, go ahead and share. I'm going to turn my video off for just a second. I'm still here, okay? Keep going.
Two of the comments are, "Hey all, is it okay to say that I want to do bad things to R. Burke? Legally, I'm going to say that's up to you, pal. I'm not going to say a word." And for the next one, he said, "Also wanted to throw my drink at the TV like an NFL fan when Elle Baird was on."
Yes.
Same.
Oh, hey. Hi there.
It's not that bad.
I mean, it's Blair Witchy, but no, that's fine. I appreciate that. Blair Witch is an old movie, Gianna.
I know
was an
what
old
it
horror
is.
movie. Okay. When I watched it too, Felix, I also wanted to throw things at the television. So I feel for you there. Yeah.
Now we're gonna move on to the worst thing I've ever read in my entire life, my 20 years of life. The Yates investigation report. I just want to say, let's choose my words here nicely. Do I even want Arnhem? I'm going to talk about Arnhem. I don't know enough about any other team. I focused my time entirely on Chicago. I've been an Arnhem hater for a year now. And it's a full-time job.
He hid for a while. He hid for a little bit. He was under the radar for a little bit. And I think until the Wolfsburg announcement, that was the first time you saw his name again.
Yeah.
in like a media release or a press release or something like that. Yeah, it's been like you said, a full-time job. Great way to put it.
Um, I don't want to. I'm trying to think how can I word the things I want to say. Also Felix is my comments about Arbor go double for Arnhem. Thank you, Felix. Appreciate it. Um, I want a job later in life. I've made comments about Arnhem before on live streams. I did it before. I think I called him an asshole. I think that's what I said. I think my dream job a year ago was to work for the Red Stars. I'm just gonna story time. My dream a year ago was to work for the Red Stars. Because I was looking up to Connor, my friend Connor Moore, who posted a thread a few days ago about how he can't go to SeatGeek for a while because of
Can't even watch NWSL soccer.
Can't even watch NWSL. So if you want to read into that, you can go to his account and read it. But I ever since I found out that there's a team in my state, I became obsessed because I was like, there's these people that are playing soccer, and soccer is my new favorite sport, and I need to see what's going on with this. And so I watch games and I tell people about it. I'm just so excited. And it's like, oh, the dream, work for the Red Stars. I wish I could say that dream is still a thing. I don't hate a lot of people, but damn, do I hate Arnhem Whistler. And I'm not afraid to say that on a live stream. I want to work for the Red Stars, not under his ownership, yeah. I think is what I'll say. I'm such a huge fan of the Red Stars. I've interviewed 4 Red Stars players. If that doesn't say enough, I don't know what does. I've gone to games. I have merch. I have my hoodie hanging up in there. I didn't wear any Red Stars gear for 7 months after that article came out about Rory Dames.
Yeah.
I changed my podcast profile picture. I changed my personal account profile picture to the Red Star with the black background. I put the "You Knew" header up. I'm so frustrated to see something like this happen in a space where you're supposed to be inspiring the next generation of women's soccer players and showcasing the best of the best. You have freaking Alyssa Nair in goal, you have Mal Pugh, you've had Kristen Press. Not even Kristen Press, years ago, amazing, still amazing now, even though with that ACL injury. Having these star talents on your team and just not giving them the time of day or treating them with respect, losing players like Katie Naughton, that's still
trading her away.
I'm upset.
Maria Sanchez trading her away.
Yeah, losing Sarah Gordon this past or an off season ago,
yeah,
key players leaving because of 2 men, maybe even more people that we don't know about. What does that say for everything else? Where are you supposed to go from there? I look up to players on this team because they're some of the most amazing people. Just getting to know a lot of the local people from close to my area. Seeing that people can go from some town in Illinois to a professional team, that's so cool. Having seeing the line of people wanting to get autographs from these players, it's such an amazing atmosphere. But all that happy emotion gets taken away when you really think about who's in charge and who was belittling the people that you're looking up to, who have PTSD because of Rory Dames and have, bad mental health because of their time in this organization. Um, it's just like so frustrating to think about. And I really feel for Connor. Like, he has done a lot of amazing work for both the Sky and the Red Stars. And just to see someone have that kind of reaction, it's so tough. It really is so tough. It takes away like what sports are supposed to do for you. The fact that I still want to work in the NWSL after all this, I don't know how, but I just want to be a part of the change. I see a lot of people that are like that too. That want to be a part of that. I'm not going to go into the gross details. But Arnhem freaking Whistler, hate your guts, hate you. Same for Rory Dames. Rory Dames should be in jail. Arnhem Whistler, jail for you too. I'm gonna take a sip of water.
No, that's fair. Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. It's not easy, and I'm not in the same proximity to it. We kind of watch from afar because we're kind of locked away from any NWSL side until Louisville came here, but 3 some hours away. But yeah, everything with Chicago, it goes down to owners who have been there from the beginning, Mary Paulson, Arnhem Whistler, where they're putting money into the league early, hiring their friends, bringing their buddies in, and someone like Rory Dames, who was a massive personality, who controlled everything, who wanted to have his control on everything. You have players like Kristen Press, and you said Alyssa Nair, and all these names that people aren't coming to the NWSL to watch Rory Dames. People aren't coming to the NWSL to see Paul Riley or Christy Holly or Richie Burke or any coach. Even now, even coaches that are in the league with good standing, no one is turning it on thinking, oh, I really want to watch that coach. You're there to watch the players. And I think that when you have something like that, the fragility of someone like Rory Dames and the fragility of somebody like a Paul Riley, who maybe isn't getting enough attention. Maybe he wants to, have his will with people because he's not getting enough of the notoriety himself. Maybe he's trying to subdue people. Maybe they're trying to subdue people because they're afraid of somebody else getting the spotlight. It's really disgusting. And everything with Chicago, I've been thinking about, and I'd love to get your opinion on this too. What if the NWSL doesn't make it through it? I think now more than ever, you have other avenues that could actually work. This is not like the beginning of the ESPN documentary. This is not, WUSA. It's not WPS. This is not those situations. You have USL, who's about to have a pro league. Now they're supposed to be in the second tier, second division pro league, but they're going to start paying players this next year. They're going to have women's teams that players are going to get a chance to play. At this point, if Arnhem doesn't sell, if Paulson doesn't sell, if the league doesn't make them sell, what's to stop you? Like that same macho-ness that has caused you to abuse people and hide it and be a horrible person is going to be also the same reason that the money you've invested is going to go down the drain. It's going to go away, because I think when you have a league like a USL, they could see this as the opportunity to swoop in and say, hey, yes, we're running a league now. This is an alternative to what you've seen so far. And does that make it immune from issues that NWSL has? No, not at all. But there has to be some huge changes. Arnhem can't stay. Merritt can't stay. With Racing Louisville, and I don't know if we're going to get into the responses, but it's been like a massive cover-up, telling their employees, don't say anything. In the Yates report, we didn't mention this, all three of the teams that they talked with, who in their memos out to folks say, oh, we're gonna cooperate with this investigation. None of the three teams cooperated with the investigation. It took the Red Stars 9 months to get them the documents that they requested. 9 months. Louisville was having their employees interviewed, but they told them not to say anything. They signed an NDA. When you have a coach requesting an NDA and you allow it to happen, first of all, what coach needs an NDA? A coach who's trying to hide something. It it's sickening. It just, the more I talk about it, the more frustrated I get about it. I'm with you. I hate these people who have ruined something great for a lot of players too. I love watching like that match on Sunday night against Angel City in Chicago. I loved watching it. It was great. It was fantastic seeing, seeing Chicago go up and win, and just seeing the passion the players had, seeing a ton of people inside SeatGeek Stadium, because they don't get a lot of people coming out to Bridgeview all the time for those matches. Seeing it like that for a regular season match, it was like, oh man, I feel good about watching it again. And then Monday just completely wiped any positivity I felt. It's just gone. Like unless the NWSL makes huge changes, it's hard to come back. It's hard to put investment in it when there's so much you can invest your time and money and energy and emotions in. And I know for years and years they talk about the pay and how fans are like, okay, we can't afford for this league to go under. At this point, is it the worst thing in the world if that happens, if you keep these people in power? I don't know. I don't know. Even if you go drastic, NWSL wise, even if you go down teams, I know they're adding teams and they're growing more and more each year. Take Chicago and Portland out. Take these teams out of the league. Do your own relegation. Do your own, like, hey, if you can't comply with what we're going to do, if you can't sell your team, you're just out of the league. Will they do that? I don't think so. I think the money is too strong at this point. I think you have a lot of investors, but you see Sarah Spain, she's been active on Twitter since it came out on Monday. It sounds like she can't even get a call back, and she's invested money into the team. It's now shining a light, like how much are these like investors actually getting back? Do they have any power? Can they do anything? Or is it just, hey, I gave some money, I invested into a team, but that's about it? Like there's so many things up in the air now with this, and the statements that we'll talk about, it's not even close to anywhere near the league has to be to start earning people's trust back.
The league cannot fold, and I am very strong in that opinion, just because of the like everything the players do receive, like health insurance, housing stipends, just pay overall. Like that's too much for it to be, especially for people that are just out of college or fringe players. They don't have probably access that some of the maybe like national team players do.
And now they're paying the national team players. Like actually now the NWSL teams are paying those players also. Yeah.
So I don't think the league should avoid folding. I personally, I've said this before, but I would love to see Athletes Unlimited do something with soccer. I think they are the best sports league in the world because of everything they've done for their athletes. The environment that they create, the people that play on the different teams, community outreach, partnering with different brands that are sustainable. I would trust them 100% with a soccer league, or even if they, didn't necessarily do something within Athletes Unlimited and were a part of making another league, that would probably be something. But John and Jonathan over at Athletes Unlimited, huge fan of what they've done for women's sports in the past 3 years. AU softball has been extremely successful. So that's probably
they'd be able to pay them. Like that's the problem too. Like talk about pay, like they can't. I don't think they can pay somebody $30,000 in maternity leave and the same stuff. Yeah. Like I feel like they're early enough in their in their life cycle. And I don't say folding like, yeah, I'd welcome it. I don't think that it's the best thing. If it happened, I wouldn't be shocked in the NWSL, and I would hate it for every player who would be impacted by it. It's awful, and I'm not one to want to take anybody's job away from them. That's horrible. It's a lot of these players' dreams, like you said, people playing in their own backyards, people playing in the cities that they're from. Like there are so many teams across the world, and it's growing in Europe, and it's getting bigger. And there are other teams out there for people, but you need a strong domestic league. You definitely you need one in this environment to stay competitive. So I don't say that as I hope they go under, because I don't. I would love for it to change. I think one way you could do it is pressuring sponsors. I think if you pressure sponsors into, we saw Budweiser, they had a statement, which was kind of like yeah, we don't like abuse and we don't like that kind of stuff, but we need statements where you're going to lose a sponsor. That's what makes people change their mind. Once you mess with somebody's money, that's when minds change. If sponsors can start to be like, hey, put pressure on the league, put pressure on the owners who are not harboring abusers or have not harbored abusers over the last few years. Once that gets questioned, once the money gets questioned, that's going to be the biggest change. And I would love to say the players speaking out is going to be the reason that these owners get out of here or are forced to sell. I also know how much money is coming into the league. It doesn't seem realistic. Like the money has to be threatened somehow for these owners to get out of here. So I don't want the NWSL to fold either. I don't want that to be, man, Tom State's the NWSL. I don't. I love it. I want the best for it. And the best is making big changes. Yeah.
I want to bring up supporter group statements.
Okay.
The ones that stick out the most to me are Chicago Local 134.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to say it's a Louisville group. I don't remember which
Are you talking
one.
about the tifos they had or the banners they had up at their match? This was at a USL match last night, a USL match between Louisville City and Detroit, which is a pretty energetic match. It's a pretty, exciting match between these two sides, but it is on the men's side too, because Racing Louisville season is over. But they have a giant banner saying "Arrest Holly," which I thought was like, oh my God, it was amazing to see. I love when supporters do stuff like that. I love when they let their voices be heard, and also pressuring their president, the Soccer Holdings LLC president, pressuring them. I thought that was fantastic. I thought that statement was huge in lieu of, if Chicago had a match or if, another team had a match in the next few days. NWSL hasn't played yet. So it's not like these supporter groups ignored it. They've had their own messages, like you said, but I thought that Arrest Holly was inspired. I think that supporters groups doing stuff like that is what having a strong fandom is all about. But yeah, talk about the Chicago statement, because I was also really pumped when I read that.
I have to pull it up, but so I can read it in its entirety.
Okay.
If my Wi-Fi wants to work. It's a big title at the top and bolded all caps. Arnhem Whistler knew, and this isn't new information. Like, this is a well-known fact. But just to put it out there again, he fucking knew.
Yeah. So it's at least 2014. At least 2014.
Yeah. This is really small text. Okay. And there's the glare on my phone. The report released by Sally Yates and the USSF unequivocally proves that Arnhem Whistler is unfit to continue in his current role as majority owner of the Chicago Red Stars organization. We find the reported details of Whistler's conduct, especially his dismissal of player complaints about the conduct of former general manager / head coach Rory Dames, completely unacceptable and irredeemably harmful to not only players, but the club as a whole. In addition, many of the details in the report regarding Whistler directly contradict what he has told us as a group regarding knowledge of Dames's abuse. As such, Chicago Local 134 has lost all trust in Whistler's ability to provide a safe workplace for players and front office staff. We believe and support the players and staff who have bravely shared their stories of neglect and abuse from the club and its owner. Until Arnhem divests from the Chicago Red Stars, Local 134 will be boycotting all in-person events, including attendance at games, merchandise purchases, and other Red Stars events that directly or indirectly benefit Arnhem Whistler. We recommend that those who have renewed their 2023 tickets demand a full refund. We stand behind Red Stars players and staff, past and present, who are the subject of this abuse and who continue the fight against enabled abuse and racism that this club has allowed. We also stand with youth players, past and present, of Eclipse, who were taken advantage of and treated as no person deserves to be treated. Support the players. Consider donating the cost of a ticket to the NWSL Players Association and or Black Women's Players Collective instead of financially supporting abusers. As a member of Local 134, I endorse that message as well. I agree with everything that was said in that. I think it's interesting. One thing that I will say though, Owen Felix agrees, says 1,000% on L134's statement. Why did it take until now, and this is for all supporters groups, until the Yates investigation report came out to like be very adamant about your stance? Because I remember like 134's position for Challenge Cup, and then it changed for regular season. And I think same thing with whatever Portland was doing. And this is not a knock on them. This is not a knock on anybody. I'm just curious as to why tonal shift is occurring now. I mean, they have a good reason, but why did we not stick with, this brand of, we don't trust him, this is what we're going to do? Like, why is it bigger now?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to say the same thing. The first statement, and seeing the conversations that went into the first statement, I know that they had like Slack. There's a lot of stuff in the Slack for Local 134 back before, the Challenge Cup, whenever everything happened in November last year, when everything came out in November last year. I also understand that there are a lot of people in it and a lot of different views at that time, because Rory was gone. And at that point, you didn't have an investigation. You had a news article, which was really well reported, really well done. But I think the gravity at that time was, okay, we have part of our people don't want to do a total ban. Part of our people still want to support the players. I think this was just a tipping point. I think getting now physical evidence, they've gotten evidence from the team. They've interviewed people as much as they can, because I know other investigations are pending. They got a lot more this time. And I think that the way that you support players now is by pushing out the ownership that it's obvious that players don't want this person owning the team. And I'm glad that supporters now jumped on it, and maybe it would have looked premature at the time, or maybe just would have hurt the players this year. But I think now that it seems like everybody's on a very similar page, minus the players. I'm sure they're going to keep going to the playoffs. I haven't heard any murmurs or anything about sitting out the matches and not doing anything until these owners are gone. But I agree with you completely. At first, I did on Bryant and Me. After that statement was released, we were very like, well, it's not great. I mean, I get it, and people have different views and stuff, but we didn't like it. Also, we're outsiders, so for us, we're a few, like 6 or 7 hours away. So we're like, okay, well, it doesn't impact our day to day, so we get it. I'm just really happy now that it's gotten to this point, at least for the supporters, not for the information that's come out. That is awful. And 100% unequivocally do not, like they said, unequivocally, Arnhem knew this is horrible. I'm happy that the supporters are now at a place where it's like, okay, firm, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I'm sure there are going to be people who still we'll buy tickets. If this goes on into next year, pray to God it doesn't go happen. It doesn't go into next season. I'm sure there'll still be people who go to matches. You can't tell everybody what to do. But I think a majority of the group is going to follow suit. And I 100% support it.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been trying to handle it in a way where it's like personally, I don't know, being young and being new to this different world of athletics, tonal shifts, all that. It's very interesting to see how everything has played out. I don't know how to, like, at first I was like, I don't know how to react to any of this information. And now, like, a year later, I'm like, fuck you. Essentially.
The thing is, like, this isn't normal though. Like,
and it's not normal.
age,
and
like,
we shouldn't have to
no
figure out how to a way to react.
But being a fan, like I've been following sports for, longer than you've been alive, G. And it's never been like, as you're learning this and it's like new to you in this sports fandom, it's new to just about everybody in sports.
Yeah, I was going to follow up with that. Yeah.
You didn't have this widespread problem of abusing players, of treating people like less than. And it's disgusting. And you start to see it now in other sports leagues. You start to see it with like the Browns and Deshaun Watson, who has had a lot of different in the NFL, a lot of different allegations, 20 some different allegations against him that he settled out of court. You're seeing it now just in my own backyard with the Columbus Crew, where the ownership doesn't want political statements, but they hold fundraisers for conservative people who are against a lot of things that most of their supporters believe in. You're starting to see people push back. And I'm glad that this is coming to light at a time like now, where I think people are a lot more, I don't say weaponized as in guns or anything like that, but weaponized as in they're empowered to go out there and say, no, my purchasing power or my time that I give is important, and you're not going to get it anymore.
Yes. I want to bring up something that's literally close to home. I guess I can't really say that as I'm sitting in Lincoln, Nebraska.
You're in a cornfield.
Yeah, in a cornfield. Eclipse Soccer Club, which is based nearby. Majority of people from Illinois that are in the NWSL have played in Eclipse. I just want to put it out there. I'm not going to say who. Again, if you want to figure that out, do your research. I've interviewed people that have been a part of Eclipse. Just putting it out there. I didn't ask them about that, putting it out there, because I don't think it's my place to do so. I also am still getting used to interviewing people. That's a thing that I do sometimes, I guess.
You're very modest. Oh, sometimes I interview players.
But I remember when the first, I think the initial reporting about Rory Dames came out, I was talking about it at one of my jobs. I don't have like 4 jobs anymore. I only have one at the moment. Just want to put that out there.
Wow, that's crazy. That's different for you.
It is. I was talking to one of my coworkers, and she said that her sister was a part of Eclipse and, heard about all this stuff about Rory. And I just thought, like, I wonder how many people I know personally, or like have a friend of a friend that had experienced this. And it's just so, it seems fake, I guess is the word I'm going to use. It just seems like, how could this be real? Like, how could this be happening here and nothing has happened?
Gotcha.
With all that. And by the way, Rory Dames, still owner of Eclipse. That is the thing.
I think his wife became like the head of the organization. But
but he still owns it. There's still people from the coaching staff and that were a part of Eclipse that are still on the coaching staff of the Red Stars. That's also a thing I'm going to put out there for people listening. So there's still people that have worked with him and like enabled him and all that are still working within the Red Stars and Eclipse. And why are they still there? Like, what? I don't even. It's the goalkeeper coach, right?
I have a theory, if you don't mind. Can I share?
Yes.
Covering different teams and watching different teams and like going to Louisville and doing matches. I covered some other matches NWSL last year. And what I noticed is that of all the teams, Chicago seemed like the most, it seemed like a local team. It seemed like a local club.
Well,
Like
there's
in Chicago,
the reasoning for that.
yeah, a lot of the players are local. A lot of the players have been, for on the team for a very long time. They have a lot of tenure where other NWSL teams, pretty good amount of turnover. And I think it was meant to be that way. It was meant to feel like a local club because Rory had all the control. He was in charge of everything, Eclipse up to here. And it's been well documented too. Whenever players wanted to go to college, whenever players wanted to get ahead or they wanted to play professionally or they wanted to get to, South Carolina or they wanted to get to North Carolina, they wanted to get to Notre Dame, they had to go through the best team in the city, and that was Eclipse. They had to be in the best youth organization, and that was Eclipse. And I think they wanted it to be like that. Rory wanted it to be his. It felt like Eclipse and Red Stars were one and the same, pretty much one and the same. You had someone like, you had those allocated players. You had Alyssa Nair come in, which is now an outdated term. If you're new to NWSL, Google allocated players. You can learn about it. You had Alyssa Nair, you had Julie Ertz, you had even Mogatro coming over. Like those aren't local players, but everybody else seemed very like Vanessa DiBernardo's played there forever. Like Danny Colaprico's been there since she got drafted. She's been there forever. Players don't really leave. It's like it feels like another way of like a power hold over people. And maybe that changes. Maybe if Arnhem is forced to sell, maybe Chicago becomes a city as world known as the city itself. Maybe they're able to branch out and not feel like a local club. Maybe they'll feel like, that bigger organization because on the field, every year they seem to make the playoffs. They're competing all the time. They always have a strong team, but it never feels like it's anything outside of Chicago, So not really my theory. It's the idea that it's just an expansion of Rory and what he's wanted to do with this club. I mean, he's been coaching it before NWSL was even a thing. He's been the Red Stars coach since Red Stars started. So I'm excited for the future, hopefully without Arnhem as the ownership and what this team can do.
Yeah. Yes. My favorite thing to look at when the people that have sign up for the NWSL draft is seeing what club they're a part of when they're from Illinois. 9 times out of 10, it's Eclipse.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Definitely.
There's some team Chicago's and Galaxy and what are some other good ones? I can't even think of them. What do I think of first? Eclipse, obviously. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately. I wish I could give a number of how many Eclipse players are on the Red Stars. I want to say like probably 7 is what I'm going to go with. More than 7, less than 7.
Someone check that. Felix, go check it.
Yeah, Felix. Felix also said Gianna knows about the scandal with the Blackhawks recently. I'm not talking about the Blackhawks. Fuck the Blackhawks. I'm a Seattle Kraken fan. Rooting for the expansion team because I don't really like hockey as much. So, and it's just like the Blackhawks, like what a terrible name and a terrible logo. Moving on.
How about the team statements? Do you want to wrap up with the team statements and talk about those? What else we got? There's a lot of things going on in Nebraska right now.
So many.
So such a studious way to decide what to do next. Instead of off the cuff, you're like, no, I'm a college student. I'm going to research what we should do next.
No.
Okay.
Can you imagine? I got a better one. Instead of team statements. 3 things you want to see happen in the next 5 months.
Okay. Oh, on the spot. This is not planned, but I like it. I like it. First thing, I'll put Arnhem and Merritt Paulson in the same thing. I think both of them have to go. They have to be
Louisville
out.
too. Like James
I would like
O'Connor
to see
still
big.
has a job.
I would like to see big changes in their front office.
Yeah.
I don't know if Soccer Holdings themselves. They seem like there's more of a hierarchy there than, say, Portland, which is Merritt Paulson, and Chicago, which is Arnold Whistler. Soccer Holdings is 2 teams. It's a lot of people. The organization, at least from what I've seen outside of their horrible coaching decision that they made last year, I've even people working in there, they seem to keep people. They don't have high turnover from what I've noticed from folks that I've talked with that have worked with the team. I'm willing to give that the benefit of the doubt if NWSL, if they can do the second thing. The NWSL goes through and has a rigorous anti-harassment policy, HR support, and ownership policy, where there has to be some solid way to get owners out of the league. I think that's the second one. There has to be some way to keep these folks accountable, because money should not be an absolver of all wrongdoing, in my opinion. And third, third, I think that the benefits for players need to go up big time. They need to get paid more. I think they need to be up there. If you're serious about this league, put your money into your biggest investment, which is your players. So I think those are my 3. So get rid of the 2 owners, have a more enriched way that owners can get in trouble for what they do, and the NWSL needs to have some like adult requirements to own a team and not treat humans like garbage. And then the third one is continue the improvements for players in terms of pay and benefits.
My number 1 is the same. But also making the owner at Gotham, one of the owners, sell his shares, because he was a part of hiring Chrissy Holly at Sky Blue.
I could go on about Gotham for a very long time, and I've said this on Bryant and Me ad nauseum, but it is it's the same owners at Sky Blue. It's the same folks that let that team go to squalor. They slapped a new logo on it, and now you're starting to see the fibers come loose. So I like that. I agree with you. That's a good one.
And like new FO with the courage, and also like Steve Malik, getting rid of him. Total turnover. And Jill Ellis, putting all the bad people, get the hell out of here. That's my number 1. Get the fuck out of here. That's what I'm gonna say.
Get out of here.
I hope I don't get in trouble tomorrow at practice.
Is a Nebraska coach going to listen to this?
I know they looked at my social media before I got hired, which I don't even know if I should be saying on lecture. I hope I don't get in trouble.
Well, you're allowed to do due diligence when you hire somebody. If it's public, it's allowed to be looked at.
I hope.
That's like keep your accounts private, folks. If you don't want anybody to see them.
I'm a public figure. No, I'm kidding.
Once you get a job somewhere, this is work-life advice from your pal Thomas.
Okay.
Don't put the company you work for in your bio, because then you look like a representative of that company. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't put where I work in my bio, but it's also not a sports thing that I'm in. So anyway,
for BAM Fam, BAM Fam Incorporated.
I'm the grandpa of the BAM Fam. No, that's Brian Lanoy. He's the grandpa of the BAM Fam. I love you, Brian.
My second thing. See, I like coming up with things on the spot, and then I don't know how to answer them. The second thing I would like to see within 5 months is a more cohesive like document of anti-harassment, like all those different things, no loopholes, definitive things that you can get in trouble for written down, like anti-harassment policy. That's a new thing, but there's still like loopholes with that, so having that written better. And I think the final thing that I would like to see is I mean, I agree with, I don't want to like steal all your points. So I'm gonna come up with something
You
new.
take them.
No, I'm gonna come up with something new.
Not a Nebraska expansion team, please.
Yeah, like that would do well. I think having one thing that I had seen recently is Chicago Local 134 did bystander training. And so having a day or maybe a week where you have like a conference, for like a in-person conference paid for by the league, in one place where, you know, all these players, coaches, front office, staff of the teams can participate in like different trainings and lectures, going through the policies and taking questions or even like making revisions. That way everyone can work together to make sure that everything is going smoothly. Because I feel like if you don't have everyone on the same page, you're kind of SOL. So having some sort of conference where you can actively learn and set up different things, I think that would work out really well.
Yeah, I like that.
So we're done, but you have to. Well, I guess if we treat this like a, we're going to treat this last part for a conversation o'clock. Who do you shout outs? Who do you want to shout out?
I want to shout out you for having me on here. That was not a setup for you to get the cred, but I hope you accept it. Women's Sports Matter, it's been awesome being just watching it and listening to it, but being on here, just have this conversation. I'm honored that you want to talk to me about it in a live platform, and also all the great stuff in your podcast empire, which is really great. I want to shout out my good pal Bryant. We haven't recorded in a few weeks because he's been out of town and I've been busy and stuff. So that's been tough not recording with him. But tonight was really important. I'm glad we were able to do it, G. And then also I want to shout out college basketball starting soon, and I'm really excited about the basketball season. Sport. I'm really excited about the beginning of college basketball because I think just like the passion and stuff, and I'm ready for soccer to be over with on all fronts.
I'm not ready for soccer to be over.
Well, Nebraska still has some games to play, but I'm ready for MLS and NWSL, and I'm ready for professional soccer to be over so I can focus wholly on basketball. I'll still watch Liverpool and stuff, but Liverpool women especially. I've got a couple scarves back there, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna do shout outs. I usually don't do shout outs because it's usually other times it's for other people to shine, but I'm the host, so I can do what I want. First of all, I want to shout out Thomas Costello for being on my show.
Oh my gosh, this was not planned. Thank you so much. I think you froze. Maybe I'm still here. Oh, okay. I did. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I probably have better reception in Columbus, Ohio than you have in Nebraska.
Okay, whatever, Thomas. I've got a lot of shout outs. Shout out to Thomas. Thanks for being on here and talking with me and listening to me talk shit about Arnhem. Second, Shout out to all the people that want to make change in the NWSL. People that are like me, up and comers in the women's sports world, or even just sports world in general, that even after seeing all this shit, you still want to be a part of it. That takes a lot. And please keep working at it, you know. Even with all the stuff that's going on, like it matters. What it comes down to is believing and protecting the players, which is kind of why I still want to work in this league one day. And then that goes on to my next part of shout out to every single player that has either supported their teammate or has reported this stuff, and is courageous enough to talk about it publicly or maybe off the record. That takes so much to do that, and we appreciate your honesty and bravery for doing that, because it really takes a lot. The stuff in the investigation would not be available if it wasn't for the players and the staff that experience this stuff. So shout out to you all. And finally, last but not least, shout out to everyone that listened tonight, watched tonight, for staying this long.
Felix.
And
thanks, Felix.
Yeah, thanks, Felix.
No, just for the comments and the questions. I appreciate
the
it.
5 comments.
Felix is a great person.
Yes. So shout out to all the people that, you know, watched tonight and were commenting. Just Felix. He's the only one that commented. But yeah, Thomas, where can the people follow you on social media?
Yeah, I'm at the number one Thomas Costello, ThomasCostello. I'm writing about Ohio State women's college basketball because it's the closest team to me. So I cover all the games, all that good stuff. I'm really excited about that. Doing player previews on everything, on every player on the roster. We'll get a player preview at Land Grant 33 or Land Grant Holy Land, part of SB Nation. So doing that. Also at Bryant and Me. Bryant and Me is a ridiculous podcast that you really shouldn't listen to, but we have fun and we enjoy each other's company, which is hard to find these days. So we can do that also. And that's on Instagram and Twitter at Bryant and Me and at one Thomas Costello. I'm at both of those.
Awesome. And I was also, I've been on Bryant and Me before. So if you don't want to listen to Bryant and Me, but you want to listen to me, you
got to pass Robbie and guest appearances.
Really do.
I think you need 1 or 2 more and you can pass them.
1 or 2 more? Damn.
Okay. Like, forget that. Never mind. Oh,
now it's time for my least favorite part of the episode, which is me doing my outro. That's what I call it, my least favorite part. I gotta gather myself, get rid of all the negative thoughts about Arnhem because he's an asshole. Just gonna put that out there one more time.
Positivity.
If you want to follow me on social media, guess what? You can. I am on 4 different platforms. On Twitter, it is at W Sports Matter, and on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, it's Women's Sports Matter. It's so easy because it's the name of the show. So you should follow. Obviously.
I do. On all of them. Not Facebook.
Thank you.
I don't have Facebook.
And if you want to watch this episode again or other episodes or other content, subscribe to Women's Sports Matter on YouTube. Again, name of the show. Super easy. Subscribe. There you go. Bunch of resources that are not currently linked down below, but they will be in the future. There's only one thing right now in the description on YouTube, and it's about Restream. And I never edited that. So it'll be there in the future. Register to vote. NAMI. Find a vaccine. All the links to players' associations of women's major sports leagues in the United States. Super easy. All of that's linked down below. I would say, hey, did you see the NWSL player series that I did recently? If you want to listen to those, go ahead. They don't talk about anything that just happened because all those interviews took place in September. Although I would like to say Tegan McGrady did talk about her experience being traded twice two different situations. So that was really interesting, and talked a little bit about Steve Baldwin in that situation, but just like a tiny bit. What else is there? More than 5%. Don't touch my jersey. Links to follow those down below. Again, name of the show. Super easy. Type it in. Do it. So easy. My goodness. I always forget what to put in my outro. I don't know what next week's show is going to be. I wish I could do a preview of that. I don't know. Maybe it's an interview I already filmed. Maybe it's me saying words for 30 minutes. We don't know. I'm going to do a promotional plug for myself, which I never do. But I'm going to do it now. I'm hosting a new podcast that's not sports related for school. So if you want to hear, if you want to hear about what it is like to be a transfer student at a big school, make sure to listen to episodes every other Friday, starting, I guess, last Friday by the time this episode is out for podcasts on Tuesday. A Transfer Student's Guide to Make Nebraska Feel Like Home. This is by me. It's a very long title. I'm so sorry. But the reason it's called that is because the song "There's No Place Like Nebraska." So I'm doing it the little like.
I've never heard that song.
Okay, that's okay. And I miss my home. So the Transfer Student's Guide to Make Nebraska Feel Like Home. That's it for me, and that's it for Thomas. We're gonna go. We're gonna end the live. We're gonna talk amongst ourselves. I'm gonna do some homework.
I'm gonna eat some chips.
Oh, and I'm gonna eat a late dinner. And yeah, we appreciate everyone that has stayed this long watching. To those few out there, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And we're gonna go. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Women's Sports Matter. Again, I'm your host, Gianna Castro. That is Thomas Costello. We're gonna leave. That's all, folks. We'll see you next time.
Adios.
Bye.